1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 1. If you're there, say amen. Amen. If you ain't, say ouch. All right, everybody there. And the child Samuel ministered. Everybody say ministered. Notice it didn't say the grown man Samuel. It said the child Samuel ministered unto the Lord before Eli. And the word of the Lord was precious. Everybody say precious. That word precious actually means rare. It was precious in those days, rare in those days. There was no open vision. And it came to pass at the time when Eli laid down in his place and his eyes began to wax dim, that he could not see. And before the lamp of God went not, I'm going to read from there. And before the lamp of God went out in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was, and Samuel was laid down to sleep. Verse 4. I'm glad to go from that. I'm sorry, guys. I ain't got my glasses. That the Lord called Samuel, and he answered, Here am I. And he ran unto Eli and said, Here am I, for thou callest me. And he said, I called not, lie down again. And he went and lay down. And the Lord called yet again Samuel. And Samuel arose and went to Eli. And he said, Here am I, for thou didst call me. And he answered, Boy, I didn't call you. Go to bed. That's a very Absher unauthorized version. Next verse. Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, neither was the word of the Lord yet revealed unto him. And the Lord called Samuel again. Somebody say again. The third time. And he arose and went to Eli and said, Here am I, for thou didst call me. And Eli perceived that the Lord had called the child. Therefore Eli said unto Samuel, Go lie down, and it shall be, if he call thee, that thou shalt say, Speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. And the Lord came and stood and called as at other times, Samuel, Samuel. Then Samuel answered, Speak. Everybody say, Speak. For thy servant heareth. I want to preach a little while tonight from the subject, the power of a call. The power of a call. Carlene asked me in the kitchen tonight, she said, What are you going to preach about? And I said, Well, I really don't know how it's going to go, but I want to start off with this statement. The enemy knows your name, but he calls you by your sin. God knows your sin, but he calls you by your name. I'm going to say that again. The enemy knows who you are, but he always identifies you by your sin, by your mistakes, by your failures, and by your shortcomings. But what makes my God so awesome and so dear to me is he knows every flaw Barry Absher has. He knows the flaws y'all don't know about. He knows the weaknesses you don't know about. He knows the struggles I have that I don't tell anybody. And even though God knows all my struggles, he doesn't call me by my struggle. He calls me by my name. There's a power in being called by your name. The reason many people are missing the purpose of God is Satan has disguised his voice as the voice of a minister. There are many preachers that when you listen to them today, they heap more pain and more condemnation on the people of God than the devil does. They are constantly reminding the people of God of their weaknesses, of their failures, and of their shortcomings. But when God moved upon the people of God in his Bible, he always called them by name. And many times when God called them, he didn't even call them by the name they were currently called. He called them by the prophetic name. You say, what are you saying, preacher? I'm saying in every Jacob, God sees an Israel. In every person hiding behind a tree, hiding from life, God sees a Gideon. In every broken down old man that can't do anything, God says, I call thee Abraham, father of many nations. God sees in you what you don't see in you. God sees in you what other people don't see in you. The reason many people's faith is messed up is you've only heard the word of man and you've never heard the word of the Lord. And when a man talks to you, they can only talk to you based upon what they know you've done. But when God talks to you, he speaks to you on the level of what he has called you to do. I have not seen and ear hath not heard. When God came to me, he didn't remind me of every time I messed up. He didn't remind me of every weakness I had. When God called me, he called me man of God and preacher. And I couldn't even quote 3 verses of the Bible. But God didn't speak to me based on where I was. He spoke to me based on where he was Ghost. He reminds you of your weaknesses and your struggles, and then you have no faith to go forward because the enemy tricks you into looking at you. My Bible said, looking unto Jesus, who is the author and the finisher of my faith. Help me, Holy Ghost. Do you remember when Peter was called? Somebody say called. No, y'all got to say it like we're Pentecostal. Somebody say called. When Peter was called out of the boat, even though he was in a storm and doing the impossible, he was fine as long as he was looking at Jesus. The problem came when he took his eyes off of Jesus and started looking at the situations and thinking about his own insecurities. I've seen people answer the call of God, and then the enemy start reminding them of all the people that don't like them, of all the struggles that were against them. And I've seen people begin to sink in their faith when they get their eyes off the Lord and they start looking on them. So many times when I'm feeling pressure, I realize the reason I'm feeling pressure is not because it's because I'm looking at the wrong person. I feel pressure to preach, and pressure to perform, and pressure to get buildings done, and pressure to get people happy when I get my eyes off of God and I start thinking, how can I do it? I have to remind myself, I can't do it. I didn't start this thing, and I can't finish this thing. God is the author and the finisher of my faith. I'm trying to set somebody free right now. The reason you're stressed is you're trying to fight a battle you wasn't built for. Anytime you try to be something God never called you to be, anytime you try to do something God never called you to do, God wants you to keep your eyes on Him. But the enemy says, look at what you did a year ago. Look at that weakness you have that your neighbor doesn't know about. Look at that struggle going on in your family. Keep your eyes on Jesus. The Bible said in Isaiah, I will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed upon the Lord. You think the enemy doesn't know that scripture? The scripture said, I'll keep Cody's mind in perfect peace if he keeps his mind on me. I was a young believer, and I just got saved, and, I rededicated my life to the Lord. Me and Carlene were dating, and I got so tormented in church. I got so tormented thinking about all my weaknesses and all my flaws, and I thought, there ain't no way God could love me. I'm just pitiful. I'm miserable. And I thought it was God just telling me He didn't like me. And I walked out of the church. I didn't even tell nobody what was going on. Pastor Doug Allen, who has the Holy Ghost, he could recognize there was a warfare going on that they couldn't see. That's why the Holy Ghost is so powerful. He followed me outside of that church. He grabbed me by the arm and he said, what's going on in your head right now? And I began to weep and I began to cry. And he said, Barry, that is the voice of the devil. Can I tell somebody, even now I feel this on me. Some of you have been listening to the voice of the devil, and he's described it as the voice of God. Anything that makes you want to give up ain't God. Anything that makes you want to quit ain't God. Anything that makes you want to lay down and die ain't God. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a power of love and of a sound. I can't get no help in it, but you're about ready to understand the voice. What better trick of the enemy than to lie to you, to talk down to you and make you think that's God? There's a world of difference between the convicting power of the Holy Ghost and the condemnation of the enemy. I'm going to help somebody tonight. The Bible says in Romans 8 verse 1, there is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus. Condemnation is that voice that tells you you're worthless, God doesn't love you, that brings up your past. That ain't God. That's the enemy. The Bible calls him the accuser of the brethren. The Holy Ghost conviction is when he convicts you and he makes you want to do better. Have you ever had people talk to you when you was messing up, but they talked to you in such a spirit of love that actually made you want to do better? That actually makes you want to go forward? When the Holy Ghost convicts me, it makes me want to come to church. It makes me want to lift my hands. But when the enemy condemns me, he always tries to disguise his voice as the voice of God. When I begin to feel like I'm pathetic and I'm miserable, and I may not be preaching to nobody but myself, but I'm going to preach myself happy tonight. And the enemy will disguise his voice, and I'll get inside my own head, and I'll want to give up, and then I'll recognize that's not the voice of my Father. The Bible says, my sheep know my voice, and the voice of a stranger they will not follow. That's why it is so important that you inundate your mind in the Word of God, that you get so acquainted with the author of the book that when a lie comes to you, you can say, that don't sound like God. When I called Carlene. If somebody else picks up the phone, I called Carlene today. I called Carlene to talk to Carlene. Just her. Jake. Y'all pray for Jake. Because I was here at the church working, and I just wanted to hear a sweet voice. Because Steve ain't the sweetest voice, Buffy. I'm praying for you, girl. And I just wanted to hear a sweet voice. So I was expecting her to pick up the phone in her chippery voice and say, "Hey, baby, how are you?" Phone picks up. "What?" "Carlene, when did you grow on Adam's apple?" I was like, "Jake, is that you?" He goes, "Yeah, what do you want?" I said, "Well, I don't want to be talking to you." And the reason why I knew it automatically, because I hear this voice all the time. All the time. When I mess up, I hear it double time. I know that voice because I've been listening to that voice for 25 years, 26 years now. I know that voice because I'm intimate with the voice. What happens to the people of God is they hear the voice, call them to the altar, and then they replace the voice of God with the voice of men. And the voice of men say something God never told them to say. And then they're like, "I heard a voice of love that made me come to Jesus, but now I hear the voice of men, and I think it's God, but it ain't God." God wants to reconnect you to the voice that started you in the first place. God wants to reconnect you to the voice that called you out of depression in the first. I need some help in it. God wants to reconnect you to the voice that got you saved in the first place. Because the voice of God gets them saved, and then we connect them to religion rather than Him. We connect them to Church of God, Assembly of God, Baptist, Methodist, Episcopalian, First-Rate Hellion, and everybody in between. And then we wonder, what happened? Have you ever seen people when they first got saved? They're happy, they're excited, and then the church gets a hold of them. And they start looking like they're baptized in pickle juice. They start, "This is wrong, that's wrong, bless God." I've seen 20-year-olds act like they're 85. I just tell you, I don't like that kind of music. I'm thinking, you are 19 years old, bud. You got a problem with somebody playing a guitar on the stage. That ain't the voice of God, that's the voice of religion. Man always hijacks the things of God and makes people miserable. Your relationship with Jesus does not make you miserable. It makes you mighty. It does not beat you down. It builds you up. What many people have mistaken for Christianity is nothing more than man-made religion of do's and don'ts, cans and can'ts, this and that. I need Him, because if I have Him, He knows how to clean me. He knows how to fix me. He knows how to raise me up. If a list of do's and don'ts could have fixed you, Jesus would have never had to die on the old rugged cross. That's in your Bible. It's Galatians chapter 2. "For if righteousness cometh by the law, then Christ is dead in vain." Which means if I could live good enough to get to heaven, Jesus would have never had to die. The reason Jesus came to me is because I couldn't get to Him. I'm talking to somebody. I come against that religious spirit that has made you feel like you don't qualify. Satan, the blood is against you. I'm saved by the grace of Almighty God. Somebody give Him a praise in here. I feel something breaking in this place tonight, because when you're left to your own head, when you're left to your own sources, and when you're left to the voice of the world, it'll try to convince you that God's looking at you and He's calling you by your sin. He's calling you by your yesterday. That's not God. That's the enemy. I've seen many people answer the call of God, and you got to understand this, because I believe everything in me that God is calling people tonight. And this is a statement God gave me. I've never heard anybody say this, but I've seen people crippled by criticism or paralyzed by praise. Can I explain that? Because I was just meditating the other day, and God gave that to me. I have seen people start out for God, but they get crippled, emotionally and spiritually crippled because of critics. Let me help you. If you're going to do anything for God, somebody's always going to criticize you. There's always going to be a critic out there, because critics are people that ain't got the guts to do nothing, so they're going to judge you that you did. There's always, the enemy's always going to have somebody that don't like the way you dress, that don't like the way you preach, that don't like the way you do business, that don't like this, that don't like. There'll always be a critic. And I've seen people start out for God, and the enemy raise up somebody in the church, y'all, or somebody in their family, and begin to criticize them, and they get crippled and afraid to do it. I thank God that when I first started preaching, I had my fair share of critics, and I still do, and I'm good with it. But I had enough people that were close to me, that they protected me and shielded me from the critics and the criticism, and they kept speaking to the purpose of God in me. That's why when somebody first steps out in their calling, you need to tell them how good they are. You need to pray for them, and you need to encourage them, and you need to help them along. We need to tell Brooke every day how good she did. We need to tell Veronica how good she did. We need to give God a hand clap for this praise team right now. We need to develop a climate. We need to develop an atmosphere in this church that encourages one another, that builds one another up. You can get beat up anywhere, but when you come to the house of God, we ought to speak to the purpose in people, and we ought to protect something when it steps out for God. But if you're not crippled by criticism, the enemy will throw another trick at you. He'll paralyze you by praise. Carlene would always get mad at Jake. It's throw Jake under the bus night to night. She would always get mad at Jake when he was a little boy because he would always make good grades and he didn't want nobody to know. Those days it belongs to the party. No, I'm joking. He said, y'all don't take up for her, don't you? She just looked at him and said, just give me, stop it, we're playing. But anytime teachers would write something sweet or call her and tell her something nice he did or how good he was doing, Jackie would say, don't tell me. And she would get so mad at him. You know, she basically wanted to beat him because he didn't want to hear the compliment. But Jake said, I don't want to have to live up to it. Jake said, and told this the other night, he explained it to his mom because she was telling him the compliments and like that. He said, don't tell me. Jake's weird. Pray for her. She said, Jake, why are you like that? He said, because Mom, that puts pressure on me to be what they want me to be, and I just won't be Jake. And I have seen people, and in my ministry, I have had times where people would try to give me compliments of praise in a manipulative way, and it was really their backhanded way of saying, don't do what I don't want you to do, or I'm going to quit being good to you. But I've just come to tell somebody, I didn't start this thing for the praise of men. I started this thing to give my praise unto Him. And whether they criticize you or give you a compliment, give it all to God. Karen Wheaton was a powerful woman of God, still a powerful woman of God. And God is using Lauren Daigle in today's generation, much like He used Karen Wheaton back then. And Karen Wheaton, every time she would sing, there would be somebody, and you need to listen to her on YouTube, young people. She was powerful, still is. She has a church in Cleveland, Tennessee, or Alabama called The Ramp, and they get hundreds of young people saved all the time. And what she would do is, she said this kept her going. She said when they would compliment her or criticize, she would just take it. They would give her roses sometimes after she sang. You remember when she came to Souls Harbor, Tammy? And she's just a powerful woman of God. But she said what she would do is when she went in a room by herself, she would shut the door. And she would give the roses to God. And she would give the criticism to God. And she would say, God, I'm not big enough to handle either. So I'm going to give you the good they said about me, and I'm going to give you the bad they said about me, and I'm just going to keep giving my praise to you. That's going to set somebody free tonight. You're going to shut the door and say, God, I give you all the good things they said, and all the junk they brought up, I give that to you too. I just want to be free to do what you've called me to do. I just want to be free. Jesus, when the triumphal entry, they said, Hosanna, Hosanna, King of the Jews. Same people 7 days later said, crucify him and give us Barabbas. What I love about Jesus is the praise. He didn't get addicted to the praise or the criticism. He was addicted to the calling that his heavenly Father had sent him onto the earth to fulfill. When you are called by God, your first and primary concern has to be, I want to please the Father. Jesus would say crazy stuff like, I will do nothing except what the Father tells me to do. I will say nothing except what the Father says for me to say. Jesus said, I'm not going to dance your dance and sing your songs and play your games. I'm just going to operate in my call. Let me tell you where your anointing is. Your anointing is you staying in the lane God called you to be to. I can't be T.D. Jakes and I can't be Stephen Burdick, but I'm the best Barry Absher you ever going to hear preach. I'm just going to stay in my lane. I need somebody to give God a praise. If you know your anointing, what hell doesn't want you to hear. The enemy wants you to think, oh, if you was somebody else, if you had been born over there, if you was this guy, or if you was that girl, then you... No, God got an anointing for you. God has a blessing for you. God has something special that he wants to do in your life. In the time of our text, the Bible says there was a child. Everybody say child. The Bible says there was a child who ministered unto Eli in the house of the Lord. I talked to a couple one time, and they said, well, I just don't make my kids come to church because I don't want to make them go to church. And I was in one of my bipolar moods that day. And I said, that's good, man. I like that. I said, don't make them go to school, man. I said, by the way, while you're at it, don't make them pay taxes. And when they go to the grocery store, don't make them pay for nothing. Just let them stick it in their pockets and let them roll. He looked at me, wide-eyed. I said, you're teaching your kids and all that other stuff is important, but God is optional. See, when I grew up, my folks gave me a drug problem. They drugged my hind into church every time the doors was open. What they were teaching me was there's something in here that can help you when you go out there. And when the world fails you, there's a God that can pick you back. I need somebody. And I got anybody that was raised in church, had a praying mama or a preaching grandfather, somebody that put something in you that lets you know there was a God that can hear you. I mean, I was raised old-time Pentecostal. I'm talking everybody going to hell. But they taught me something. They taught me that the power of God was real. They taught me that God's place in our life was not optional. It was first and foremost. And then as long as God was in his rightful place, that's why the Bible said, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. What bothers me about modern day preaching is it's always telling me about things. It's not telling me about the importance and the preeminence of Christ being over all things in your life. Samuel was in the house of God from the time he was born. Why? He was given to the house of God at 4 years of age. I'll tell you why. Because his mother was desperate. Samuel's entire life was birthed out of desperation. The reason I serve God like I do is I got desperate. I got desperate and the world could not fulfill my need. The world couldn't take away my darkness. The world couldn't take away my shame. And I got so desperate I came back to the house of God and God did what the world can't do. Can I tell you, God does big things through desperate people. Show me somebody that can preach and I'll show you somebody that got desperate. Show me somebody that can sing and I'll show you somebody that got desperate. Show me somebody that loves God and I'll show you somebody that got desperate. And God met them. If you ever met your need, I need you to give him a praise right now. If you ever did something for you they couldn't do, we're going to find you. Desperation births powerful people. I worry about this generation. I don't care about casual dress. I like to dress comfortable. You know, I like it, as you can tell. I don't care about casual dress in the pulpit. I care about casual attitudes. There's a difference between being dressed casual when you come to church or having a casual attitude towards God. Just because I'm wearing a t-shirt does not mean I'm casual towards God. I'm serious as a hammer when it comes to God. Does anybody hear me like that? This place ain't an option for me. This is the house of God. This is where I hear God speak. This is where God keeps my family together. This is where God protected me from nervous breakdown. I need the house of God. Samuel was birthed from desperation. He had a mama that couldn't have babies. Life was driving her up the wall. She came to the house of God, and the preacher was so messed up that when she came to the altar crying and weeping, he thought she was drunk. Preacher was so detached from a hunger for God that he smacked her. The Bible said he marked her mouth. Can I tell you, we've got ministries now that are so detached from the harvest. They're so detached from the people that are hungry for God. Yes, they may come to church with needle marks. Yes, they may come to church with rap sheets. But I see the harvest. I see not where they have been, but where God is leading them. It's not about who they used to be. It's about who God has called them to be. And you've got to recognize the harvest. It may come in here just fresh out of jail. If they're perfect, they don't need church. Jesus said, they that are well need not a physician, but they that are sick. And so Samuel was birthed because after he smacked her mouth, he recognized there was a desperation and conviction got on him. And he prophesied to her. He quit judging her based on what he thought she was doing, and he began to speak to the purpose and the desire that she had. My Bible said he will give you the desires of your heart. And she birthed a child, and she was so thankful that God had done that for her. She dedicated that child to the Lord. I've seen people pray for kids, and then they get a kid and never bring it to church. I'm going to tell this story because it's a good story. I was a young preacher. Had this lady and this man. They had a lawsuit going because she got surgery and they removed the wrong parts of her organs. And, you know, she went through a lot of pain over that. And she kept, every service, she'd get us to pray and believe for her settlement. And they were at every church service, every one. Every time the doors, they were some of the first people there and some of the last people to leave. Mm-hmm. Well, you know what God did? God heard their prayers, and they got like a $2 million settlement. The next Sunday, they went to church. I thought, you know, they probably needed vacation. I get it. Next Sunday, they went to church. I was like, well, they probably needed a 2-week vacation. I get it. A month went by, and I hadn't seen them. So I began to inquire about this couple that had been praying all this time for this great miracle. They had bought them a boat, and they were just worshiping the Lord out on the lake now. God gave them what they thought they wanted, and they liked what He gave them rather than Him. I'm not serving Him just because of what He gave me. I'm serving Him because of who He is to me. Because if my house burns up, and my car breaks down, and my voice quits working, I still have a God that will never leave me and never forsake me. And I want my kids to know that as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. I'm trying to help somebody right now because in this generation they tell you don't pressure your kids into church. I'm telling you, pressure them little rascals into church. Twist their arm into church. Make them go to church. Teach them that this is more important than any other thing. Because if they get this thing right, everything else will be okay. Can I get a witness in here right now? Samuel was raised in the house of God. Samuel was dedicated to God. Am I too hyper tonight? Because I'm just feeling double-barreled right now. Samuel raised in the house of God. Samuel ministered unto Eli in the house of God. And there came a time because he was in the house of God. In the house of God. Not on the lake. Not on the boat. Not on the softball field, but not coming to church. I'm just preaching hypothetically now. Because he was in the house. Somebody say in the house. In the house. In the house, he heard the call. Can I tell you the night God called me into ministry? Me and Carlene got in a fight on the way to church. She was letting the devil use her. Y'all rough crowd tonight. Actually, it was my fault probably. It's 50-50. 6 one way, half a dozen another. Anyhow, we was fighting. So we was in this terrible argument, you know. And I flipped the U-turn. I said, forget this. We're going back to the house. And all of a sudden, we both began to weep. And we said, man, let's just go to church. Let's just get over it. Let's just go to church. Okay? Came to church at night. God showed me something early on. And that was the night that God Almighty called me into the ministry in that service. I'm trying to tell somebody, the enemy tries to push you out. So if he's been trying to push you out, that means you're closer now than you've ever been. When he says don't come, that's when you need to be here. When he says stay in bed, that's when you need to say no. That's for me and my house. We're going to hear the call. Well, brother, you can just worship God anywhere. Duh. But there's something powerful about the church. Because my Bible says 1 can chase 1,000. But 2 can put 10,000 in flight. The Bible said that to assemble yourselves even more so as you see the day approaching. God left the church here not because he was insecure and needs your praise, but because this world is contrary to your faith. And you need to be able to come in here and get your faith built up when the world's trying to beat you down, and when people are trying to criticize you, and people are trying to manipulate you. There ought to be a place you can come and hear the voice of the Father. That way when the world lies to you, you know the difference between the voices. We've got people now. The Bible said in 2 Timothy, toss to and fro. To and fro with every wind and doctrine. One preacher can get up and say one thing, they're like, that's awesome. Woo. Next week, another preacher get up and say something totally different. That contradicted, woo, that's awesome. Next week, somebody get up and say something far left. Woo, I like that right there, that's awesome. You've got to get to the place where, and you let me help you understand how God speaks to you and grows you spiritually. Not from bouncing from church to church to church to church. You will get confused and go about half crazy. You get fed when you get planted in the house of God. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, for he shall be like a tree that is planted by the rivers of water. But with the wicked it is not so. I'm preaching right now, Psalm chapter 1. I need you to give God a praise if you know there's power in being planted. I told Carlene, I said, I'm going off school tonight. I said, I feel like I used to feel it. And she said, well, that's the only thing that ever worked anyhow. Well, we got this little generation now. Everything's so cute, so sweet. Then get your hind into church. When the devil's driving you crazy, get to church. When you don't feel like coming, come to church. Why? Because you're going to need it. Because you're liable to hear a call in here that contradicts the lie he threw at you out there. It helps you stand in the battle and stand in the struggle. We draw strength from one another. The Bible says every joint supplied. Robbie is a good golfer. I'm trying to make Sam jealous right now. Because some say Sam is a good golfer. But Robbie said he's way better than you, Sam. Don't get mad. But if we were, I got you now. If we were to disconnect his elbow, he taught Joel Horn how to golf, and not me. Pray for Sam. And if we were to disconnect Robbie's elbow right now, no matter how good he could swing, no matter how strong his muscles were to swing that golf ball, if we were to disconnect his elbow, he wouldn't be able to play the game of golf. Why? Because his power and muscle memory, it doesn't primarily come from the muscles, but from the joints that hold them together. Your power comes from what you're joined to. And can I tell you, your depression comes from who you're joined to. Your faith will come from the people you're joined to. And that spirit of fear that's eating you up, it's probably coming from somebody that you're joined to or used to be joined to. And you're still rehearsing the words that they spoke over you. I guess I just want to ask you tonight, what are you joined to? Samuel was laying down and he did not yet know the Lord. That's what your Bible said. It is possible to come to church. It's possible to be saved and not be intimately acquainted with the word of the Lord. And when God began to speak to Samuel as he laid down, he said, Samuel, Samuel. He thought it was Eli talking to him. So many times you miss God because he's speaking to you through people. I'm going to help somebody right now. There were times that God spoke to me through the voice of my mother. There were times God has spoken to me through the voice of my wife, the voice of my grandmother, and the voice of some precious people at this church. God uses people to speak to you. But if you're not careful, sometimes you'll think, oh, that's just them talking. When in actuality, it is God using them to speak to you. And he was so acquainted with Eli that he thought it was Eli that was talking to him. He woke Eli up, and Eli said, boy, I did not call you. I'm sleepy and I'm tired. Now, you've got to understand the backstory of Eli. Eli was a half backslidden preacher. He had lost his vision. He had let his two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, take over the house of God, and they were stealing everybody's money and beating up people in church and sleeping with prostitutes. And because they were treating the house of God like it was optional and it was common and there wasn't nothing special about it, the word of the Lord had refrain from the house of God. When you begin to treat God like He's optional, when you no longer respect the Word of God, when you no longer respect the move of the Spirit, then the heavens will close off and it will be hard for you to hear Him in the house. But when you begin to lift your hands and praise God and say, this place is holy, this time we had together is holy, God will roll back the heavens and He will release a word that can separate you from your pain. I need somebody to give God some praise if you know I'm right about it. We live in a generation, man. Generation, dude. They don't take nothing serious. Oh, man. Yeah. That's so cool, man. And we brought that same pitiful spirit in the house of God, brother. Yeah, man. Cool. No, stop. We are not surfer dudes. This is the house of God. I like it when I see people say, God, I need you. God, fight me. I like it when I see tears streaming down people's faces and they're at this altar because they know God can do something for them no man can do. I like it when I see people coming through those doors holding their Bible and they got this expectancy on them like, I believe God's going to speak to me tonight. I like it when I was talking to Chris and RW and they came all the way from West Virginia because they said God said stuff to them here that He wasn't saying nowhere else. I like it when people come to the altar on a Sunday morning. I like that we baptized 10 people in a cold river last Sunday. I like the fact that there's been 30 people saved in the last 2 months. I need you to give God a praise if you know that's powerful. I'm not going to treat it like, yeah, dude. Wow. No. I say, thank you, God. Yes. Carly took pictures of us baptizing. I looked at those pictures. I wasn't trying to see if I had love handle popping out. I wasn't trying to see anything other than the fact that, God, after all these years, your hand's still on me. And I thank you. And I teared up because I'm just going to tell you the truth. Me and Carlene, sometimes, I know it's hard to believe, we fight a spirit of discouragement. And sometimes we get human and we start looking at all the wrong stuff. And the people that used to love us that don't love us no more, and the people that used to like us that don't like us, and the people that give everything. And the last weekend, Carlene said, Barry, why don't we focus on the fact that in the last month, 19 people got saved. Yes. And you baptized 10 people in a river. And God's still using you. That totally switched everything around in me. I want you to begin to praise God for the good stuff you got going on. I want you to take 10 seconds and just praise God for the good things you got going on. I know you got people that don't like you. I know you got problems. But give God a praise for the good stuff you got. You got more to praise Him for than you got to worry about. This happened. Whew, this happened 3 times. Lord, it feels so good to just be up here with Cody and Chelsea. Happened 3 times, y'all. 3 times. He kept going to man. The man said, I didn't call you. Eli said, I didn't call you, boy. But on the 3rd time, Eli perceived, even though he was in a not so good place with God, he perceived there was something precious on that boy. God will put people in your life. And if you're waiting for them to be perfect, you're going to miss God. God don't use perfect people because they ain't none. But this man, he had recognized there was something special about this boy. From the time I've known